Something that I dearly miss in modern WWE are the elaborate stage and set designs for pay-per-view shows. With the exception of WrestleMania and more recently the Royal Rumble shows, the WWE nowadays use the same set and entranceways for their major pay-per-views, with maybe small variations. And while this may change when the WWE goes back on the road, I'm not holding my breath for it either. Some may wonder, why would you care about what a set and what a stage looks like? I mean, in the end it all comes down to what happens in the ring, and the interior design of an arena shouldn't really affect one's enjoyment of a wrestling show, and that is true to a certain extent. But the WWE and even WCW done such a good job with their old set designs that it really made each pay-per-view really distinctive, and it gave each show its own unique feel. Unique sets would become the background for important moments too, so for example, seeing Hulk Hogan walk out at the 1996 Bash at the Beach with the beach set behind him is what people remember. They remember the whole picture, and this means that people have an easier time remembering which show this iconic moment happened at. When important moments happen in the modern era away from WrestleMania, the picture always looks the same because the arena and the set looks the same. It's not just the entranceway either. Different lighting would be used in arenas to distinguish one show from the other, with WCW being particularly good in this area. But again, it seems like something that isn't really considered these days. That's not to say that the more modern WWE entranceways look bad, by the way. The company does a great job with the multiple screens playing multiple videos and all that. It's just that, well, it gets a little repetitive. Also, we can't blame companies either for using the same sets during the pandemic era. Just thought I'd point that out. And just before the pandemic era, the WWE did change their set designs again for pay-per-views, although it was a set that was going to be used multiple times. Anyway, let's go back and look at some of the most distinctive set, stage and entranceway designs from wrestling's past. This will be a list of my personal favourites, but I encourage you guys to comment and let me know which ones you liked. I'll start off with one that everyone loves and what everyone wants to see come back, the SmackDown set that debuted in August of 2001. While it's obviously not a pay-per-view set, I know people love this design, and really, it represents some of the very best years in SmackDown history. The classic Ovaltron version of the SmackDown set was retired during the August 9th, 2001 episode of the weekly television show, when Rhino gored Chris Jericho through the set. The very next week, the new set was revealed, a giant fist that shattered through glass. It's incredibly unique, and as mentioned, fans think about the best years in SmackDown history when they see this set. The fist itself is still in the WWE's warehouse. 3 separate pieces make up the iconic fist, and fans had hoped that the fist would make a comeback for a recent throwback episode of WWE SmackDown, but instead they got a CG version. This made me laugh when I saw it on TV, although to be fair, it was during the pandemic era, so we can't really be mad about it. Also, who can forget playing SmackDown Shut Your Mouth on PlayStation 2 and jumping off the fist? People went crazy for this back in the day. Late into the new generation era, the WWF used this entranceway quite often for pay-per-views with a few different alterations. And one of the best things they'd done with this setup was the glass shattering effect for Big Daddy Cool Diesel and Stone Cold Steve Austin. Something else that debuted during the new generation era was the In Your House pay-per-views, and for these special, shorter events that were sold for a cheaper price, the WWF used a house design that again was very distinctive. The house had a few different versions, one with a screen, one without a screen, one that was just a doorway and nothing more. And one of the things that people remember from the house was the time Shawn Michaels danced on the roof. Again, the WWE went to their past when they brought back In Your House as an NXT special event. Fans wanted to see the house, and well, it wasn't the same, was it? Circumstances out of WWE's control meant setting up the whole elaborate stage would have been a tough task. But at least we got Todd Pettengill back to do some TV spots for NXT TakeOver In Your House. That was great. Hopefully, when fans come back to arenas, we'll get to see the house design once again. The classic In Your House design, though, takes you right back to that late new generation era. The set was retired at In Your House Ground Zero in 1997, and later versions of the set represented the transition from the new generation to the Attitude Era. When In Your House was eventually dropped, the WWF used new names for their bi-monthly pay-per-views, and this meant new sets and designs would begin making appearances, some of which were absolutely brilliant. It was really from early 1998 onwards where the WWF got really creative with their sets, and we'd get to see some really unique stages and entranceways, though the company did use this one here on a few occasions. This circular design was first used at the 1998 Royal Rumble, and it even made an appearance in the Royal Rumble video game that came out in arcades and also on the Sega Dreamcast. And we'd also see this design used again at WrestleMania 14, the 1998 King of the Ring, and the set would also make appearances at the 1999 Royal Rumble and the UK's No Mercy show in May of '99. Back to '98 though, the WWF put together a great entranceway for their Over the Edge pay-per-view that looked like a junkyard. It even had the Briscoe Brothers body shop advertised along with the real business phone number. I wonder how many callers the Briscoe Brothers got on this evening. It's not the most beautiful set the WWF ever made, but it was very different from their usual designs around this time period. Later in the year, Survivor Series hosted the Deadly Game Tournament, and a giant skull was placed in front of the entrance curtain. The skull itself was used in the logo for the event, and it's one of those things you always think of when you think of the Survivor Series in '98 and the tournament to crown a new WWF champion. The 1999 King of the Ring featured a ladder match pitting Stone Cold Steve Austin against Vince McMahon and Shane McMahon. And to mark the occasion, the set featured a ton of ladders that created a makeshift entranceway. The set itself was used in the ladder match to great effect. Not only did Vince and Shane get whipped into the ladders, but Austin made the whole set crash on top of Vince McMahon. A great example of the entranceway being incorporated into an actual match. When people think of great King of the Ring sets though, they usually think of the 2001 set that featured a giant electric chair in the middle of two giant screens. Glass panels were also placed below the side screens, and these were used during the Kurt Angle vs Shane McMahon match. I'll talk about that another time. The giant chair made a return at the 2002 King of the Ring, although the glass panels were removed from the bottom. Let's take a break from WWE sets for a moment and take a look at WCW, a company who got way better with their designs as time went on. The Monday Nitro setup is a favourite of mine, and the original design really captures the glory days of the television show. When I see the later sets, I always think about how bad things had gotten within the company. The original is definitely my favourite, but when it comes to pay-per-views, I think most people would say that the Halloween Havoc set that debuted in 1998 was their favourite. It looked incredible. The big inflatable demon holding the Halloween Havoc pumpkin became quite iconic, and when it comes down to sets that just look extremely cool, Halloween Havoc 98 and 99 are hard to beat. For many, this was the pinnacle of WCW set designs, but there's a few others I like too. Super Brawl 8 might sound like a weird choice to others, but I liked how open the floor was, and I also liked the long screens that surrounded the entrance stage. It looked quite modern for WCW standards. This was an update of Super Brawl 7, which had the same layout, but multiple smaller screens were used instead of one giant wide screen. NWO Sold Out also stands out. NWO logos were plastered all over the entranceway, and a big light display sat at the top of the set. TV screens were placed everywhere that displayed the NWO logo, and while Sold Out 97 may not have been the best pay-per-view, it did have a great set that felt different from standard WCW shows. Slamboree 1998 featured a giant pay-per-view logo that I liked also, and the Great American Bash the following month looked great too. Towards the end of WCW's run though, the company decided to use the same set for Nitro, Thunder and pay-per-views. And for me anyway, I think of some dark days when I see this WCW stage design. In the year 2000, the WWF added the hook or the sickle to their Backlash logo. The previous logo in 1999 was based on Mankind's mask, but the following year, the whole theme of the pay-per-view was updated. The company also added swinging hooks or swinging sickles to the entranceway, and it really gave the pay-per-view its own identity. Many fans have fond memories of the Backlash 2000 entranceway, and I can see why. It did look really good. Later in the year, the WWF also introduced a new logo for their SummerSlam events, and the logo was incorporated into the set design, giving us a lot of oval-shaped SummerSlam stages as the years went on. Who could forget Shane McMahon falling off the top of the SummerSlam entranceway in 2000 though? That was spectacular. I also liked the SummerSlam set that was introduced in 2004 with the screen wrapped around the SummerSlam logo. And when I asked you guys which sets you liked, quite a lot of you mentioned the SummerSlam 1998 Highway to Hell entranceway in Madison Square Garden. The WWF literally used the gates of hell for the superstars to walk through, and it fit the pay-per-view perfectly. Speaking of Madison Square Garden, I should also mention the 2000 Royal Rumble where a taxi cab sat on top of the entranceway. Even with limited space and the use of the garden's central doors, the company still made the set unique and special with this one. The WWE's Armageddon pay-per-view sets looked like wastelands and buildings that had been destroyed during the end of days. The 2002 version used a lot of fire to great effect, but people really liked the castle version that was introduced in 2006. For a pay-per-view that wasn't one of the big four, the WWE really went all out when putting together this set. It looked fantastic. The castle was updated throughout the years, with the final version being displayed in 2008. This was also the very last Armageddon pay-per-view that the WWE produced. I don't think I'm alone in saying that when I think of Jeff Hardy finally winning the WWE Championship, I also think of the huge castle in the background. Speaking of using fire for sets, New Year's Revolution 2007 featured a fire-breathing dragon. Not much more needs to be said, really. And then we get to WrestleMania, where the WWE spares no expense and the company goes all out to make the arenas or stadiums look absolutely spectacular. Before looking at some of the more elaborate sets, many of you said that you liked WrestleMania 10's entranceway in Madison Square Garden. And yes, I agree, while it isn't the most grand or expensive entranceway the WWF or WWE ever produced, it's definitely iconic. When WrestleMania moved to stadiums though at WrestleMania 17, that's when things got ridiculously larger than life, and the stages became such incredible productions that you literally couldn't wait to see what they looked like. It became a thing where you wanted to see how the company dressed up the stadiums each and every year. It just got bigger and more elaborate. I liked WrestleMania 19 with the block screens placed on the stage. WrestleMania 20 was a great showcase of how to use screens for more than just playing entrance videos. And WrestleMania 24 looked like the WWE set up their own giant building for superstars to walk out of. It was extremely impressive. WrestleMania 29, coming from the MetLife Stadium in the shadows of New York City, paid tribute to the Big Apple with the Brooklyn Bridge and Statue of Liberty being the big set pieces. WrestleMania 24 paid tribute to New Orleans with a huge Mardi Gras masquerade mask that stretched across the entire stage. The mask itself was a giant screen. In the year prior to that, the theme parks of Orlando played a huge role in the general theme of WrestleMania 33. The Universal Globe was mimicked as the centerpiece, and there was even a roller coaster design on display. People have their favourite WrestleMania sets, and there's no wrong answers here. Even if the event itself isn't great, the production values are always extremely high. Although, to be fair, a lot of people weren't happy with the WrestleMania 35 stage, which consisted of a giant screen and nothing more. The screen was gigantic, but there was nothing else really going on. Thankfully, when the company returned for WrestleMania 37, they went back to their old ways and we got an even bigger pirate ship than the one already in Raymond James Stadium. Okay, so I've talked about some of my favourites, so let's take a look at what you guys liked. I put a community post up on YouTube to get your feedback, so here are some of your choices. A few of you liked the Taboo Tuesday entranceway that consisted of a giant computer screen and a keyboard was used for the floor. Taboo Tuesday was all about internet voting, so the set definitely suited the theme of the pay-per-view. The Cyber Sunday pay-per-view kept the theme, but they updated the computer entranceway. If they'd done this thing again, it would probably be some crazy RGB case with a water cooler or some shit. In Your House Rock Bottom was The Rock's very own pay-per-view, and to celebrate the occasion, the stage included 2 enormous rock banners. This all played into The Rock's cocky heel persona really well. Fully Loaded 1999 is another fan favourite. Banners of The Undertaker, Steve Austin and Vince McMahon were featured on the set, and the Vince McMahon banner featured the owner covered in blood. This played into the main event of the evening. Fans also liked the simplicity of the 1997 to 1998 Raw's War setup with the curtains and the giant Titantron. This setup was used as the WWF rose from the ashes during the Monday Night Wars, and it's simply iconic. Survivor Series 2003 was brought up and I totally forgot what it looked like. After looking it up, yeah, I agree, this one looks very unique. Not sure why I forgot all about it, but I do remember the Buried Alive match. Maybe I could only picture the graveside and not the actual entranceway. A great choice though. The Invasion setup is another fan favourite, and I too really like what the WWF did here. Separate entranceways were used for Team WWF and Team Alliance, making it seem like the superstars had to be kept apart backstage. The WWE's Night of Champions pay-per-view would feature giant banners of all championship belts surrounding the entranceway. The pay-per-view series started off as a tagline for Vengeance 2007, and the entrance was kinda similar. But in the years that followed, the Night of Champions set design definitely got better with a much more prestigious look. Channel viewers also mentioned the 2006 Royal Rumble, and yeah, how could I leave this one out? The Roman Coliseum themed pay-per-view looked really good, and I also forgot that John Cena had his own special ramp made for this pay-per-view. These John Cena years are a total blur for me, unfortunately. I've definitely left out a whole lot here, so let me know in the comments some of your favourite WWE and WCW stage setups and entranceways. Hopefully though, what's been conveyed here is how unique and individual these setups made pay-per-views and shows of the past. With the exception of the pandemic era, which we obviously can't blame the WWE for, the identity of pay-per-views have been completely taken away by the WWE's decision to use uniform stages and sets. If everything looks the same, then in a way, everything feels the same too. While the WWE's HD sets and their network sets look really good, it becomes the same old thing after a couple of weeks, and while it really shouldn't affect anyone's enjoyment of a pay-per-view or a show, it does hurt the overall production of a show, at least in my opinion. I'm sure a lot of you think I sound like a lunatic here. Consider this though, if wrestling in itself is quite repetitive in nature, and if a common complaint is that we've seen it all before, then wouldn't it make sense to change everything else about the presentation to make things feel fresh? If you've got an opportunity to change other things about the product, then why not do it? I don't know, I'm sure the WWE have their reasons for keeping the same sets, and I'm sure it comes down to logistics and money. But for me, the old stages and old setups simply look better and way more creative. Again, let me know your favourites and let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you very much for watching this video, and take care.